I know so many people that achieve so much and they're so unfulfilled. And there's so many people that are trying for fulfillment and they, it never lasts. It's because you got to think about it. Everything in life is calling us to grow. And if you want to know what doesn't work, the pop psychology of self-care is not working any more than the hustle culture did. They're both extremes. Right? Life's a balance, right? And if you want to see what the results are, look at the medication. And millennials are known as the RX, not the X generation, the RX generation, right? So it's that is not solving it to feel good. Not feeling good is part of what gives you drive. It either destroys you or drives you. You have to make those choices. And most of us will not let it destroy us if we don't medicate ourselves, if we find a way to push through. But if you don't have to, people go for comfort. And comfort will never make you proud. Comfort won't make you strong. Comfort will not allow you to inspire your kids or your community or your friends. But there's a greater thing than comfort that comes from fulfillment by pushing through and here's the other part. It's I hear the other pop culture element drives me crazy is self-esteem. Oh, I don't have any self-esteem because when I was a child, people said these horrible things to me. And how convenient you only remember the horrible things they said to you, right? They said lots of things. But the truth of the matter is what people said to you makes no means whatsoever as to whether you feel like you have high self-esteem or not. Self-esteem is earned by yourself, with yourself. Someone can say your whole life, you're beautiful, you're gorgeous, you're so smart, and you can fear you're not, right? People like that all the time, right? Absolutely. And they have all this anxiety because they thought they're the best in the world and they find out they're not. The parents overblew who they were at that stage. They didn't teach them to develop it or to push through or develop the muscle that would make them the best in the world at what they do. On the other hand, you can be told by people you're a piece of worthless piece of junk, you'll never be this, you're a piece of that, and that person can say, screw you, I'll show you who I am. So what people have said has zero impact on your self-esteem. And telling people they're great or not great does not change it. Teaching them to have grit, teaching them to push through. The way you develop esteem for yourself is by doing difficult things that you know are right. When you do something you know is right, even though it's difficult, your esteem for yourself grows. And no one can take that away. They can take away money or material things. No one can take away who I've become as a man and my path, or you as a man, or anyone else as a woman. And I think it's really important to know that if you want to feel good about yourself, it's not by relaxing. Don't get me wrong. I know how to relax. I know how to take time. And I have a beautiful family. I have 5 kids and 5 grandkids. So I certainly have to be able to do that. And one of my kids is, thanks to COVID, I have a 51-year-old daughter and I have a 4-year-old daughter. So I have quite a spread at 60 when I'm going to be 66 pretty soon. So to give you a sense. So my life is full, but it still has to have growth in it. It still has to have progress. And that's what makes it fulfilling.
Yeah. What's the difference between growth and hustle? Meaning?
Well, yes, exactly. Hustle, I'm just doing it to try to make money. If I'm busting my tail, but man, I know what I'm doing. You know what it is? I measure people's lives. I have to give a 0 to 10 score on their body, not compared to someone else. Like your idea of a 10. When I was 20, I thought washboard abs was a 10 and I had them and my back hurt. My shoulders, I was out of balance, right? Everything else was screwed up, big biceps and weak in other areas. So I asked people, where are you 0 to 10 in your life today based on what you want for your life? Is it energy? What is it? Where are you 0 to 10 in the level of meaning and emotion? Because if you don't measure something, you can't manage it. I'm giving 0 to 10, a little description. Give me 0 to 10 where you are in your relationships. And the most important one, your intimate relationships, because friendships are easy, right? Where's that 0? And if you don't have one, that's 0. And you want to see that, so it pushes you, right? Where are you in, your, and this is the one that led me to it, is your work. Or is it for you a career? Or is it, a calling or a mission? And I already know who people are based on which word they pick. If it's work, it's work. If it's a career, they work at it and they're pretty fulfilled at it. But if it's mission, like I know you and I are both called. Mm-hmm. I don't have to do this another day of my life. I do it because it's my mission. It's my purpose. I believe it's what I'm made for. There is no amount of work that can wear you down when it's mission. 0. And if you haven't found that, I would caution against one other thing, if I may. You've stirred me up with some different questions.
Yeah.
Here. It's good. I think it's important to understand a lot of people are trying to find their purpose. What's my purpose? What's this big purpose? Who said you had one? Right? Who said you had one for a lifetime? If you write down a purpose statement, this long mission statement, it sounds real good and you read it, it's never going to cover all of who you are, what you're for. I have a different purpose when I'm sitting down with my daughter, my youngest daughter, than I am with my oldest. I have a different sense of purpose in what I'm doing in this business is for that. I have a different purpose in our conversation today. Purpose is what gives life meaning. But you don't have to have one giant purpose that you're struggling to find. Life will evolve. And if you just keep moving forward in a purposeful manner, like whatever you do, there's some meaning to it, then I think you're going to find you're much more fulfilled. And those measurements, by the way, I would do them on your finances, and I do them on the spiritual side of life, not religious, but like religio means celebration. Most people in religion don't have a lot of celebration anymore, right? Just a bunch of rules. So it's like, okay, I divided it between how much are you celebrating your life? Because isn't this an unbelievable gift that we're sitting here breathing, this heart's beating, we don't have to work at it, that the skin's working, that we can have a conversation, that we can feel, that we can live, that we can have our children. That's a miracle. We forget what a miracle it is just to be alive, right? So are you celebrating? And then are you contributing? Because celebration without contribution doesn't last, you know? And so I say measure those things. But to answer your question specifically, I think it's critical that you understand stress comes from having activity without purpose is the drain on your emotional well-being.
Yeah, and that's what we're struggling with.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You just mentioned there you have a child who's 51 years old, and one that's 4.5.
I wouldn't call her a child now. She wouldn't appreciate that.
Yeah.
I have a daughter who's 51.
Yeah, you have a daughter. You have a daughter. Sorry, yeah. You said you have a daughter who's 51 years old. And you probably still see her as a child in some ways, I assume. I don't know. My mom can't stop seeing me as a child. But yes, you have a daughter who's 51 years old. You have a daughter who's 4.5 years old.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what being a dad at that age was like. And in your 20s,
yes,
to what being a dad in your 60s looks like. Like what's different? What are the different challenges? What are the different lessons?
It's my favorite stage of life is this stage of life. I would say that first for everyone listening. You know, I look at life in seasons. You know, it's like I'm a big believer that the 3 skills we need to teach our kids or ourselves, especially in a world that in the next 5 to 10 years will have more change than any time in human history, between nanotechnology and AI and robotics and everything else. The world is going to change like never before. So how do you have an advantage there? You have to master 3 skills. You have to master pattern recognition so that you're not fearful.
Yeah. A
lot of fear is because you think this is the only time this happened. Politically, well, it will never have been this way. It's bullshit. I can show you stuff that makes Republicans and Democrats look nice to each other from the past. You know, when you recognize a pattern, you go, okay, this has happened before. And seasons are one of those patterns, right? And then you're not fearful. And then the second part, it's not random. The second skill is mastering really pattern utilization. That's what gives you power in your life. Because now a baby can't get out of this room until they recognize almost all rooms have an exit. And if I look around there, it's shaped a certain way. And there's a handle that if I push, pull, I can get out of here. If you don't, you're trapped. So pattern recognition is power. At a little level, get out of the room. At a big level, if you look at somebody that's great in business, like how do I have all these companies? I couldn't even run one company with 5 employees. I was trying to do $1 million in business. I wasn't hitting it. And I was stressed out of my mind to now have 114 companies doing 10 billion. The difference is pattern recognition. It's like understanding and then learning how to use those patterns in those situations. So if you're good in business, there's certain patterns. If you're good at investing, there's certain patterns. If you've got good mental health, there's certain patterns. You know, if you're physically well, there's certain patterns. If you know somebody's a good dancer, they recognize how to use patterns to produce a specific result. Spielberg has made movies for 40 years. He knows if I move in slowly like this, he knows if I go fast, what'll happen. If I pull back, if I bring the music up here. So anyone you know that you probably respect and like doesn't just recognize patterns. They got great at using them. But the third level for me is pattern, a creation, where you really, it's like if you played music, you did it usually by playing someone else's music. Beethoven, Bach, whoever you did, you learned someone else's patterns. And you did that long enough, you could use it. And then one day you start to come through. You start to become a creator, right? We stand on the shoulders of the people before us. And so those 3 skills are how you can compete or do well. And I want that for my 51-year-old and I want my 4-year-old. Having said that, you don't recognize as many patterns when you're 25, to answer your question, right? And I'm proud of the father I was. I mean, I got married, my first marriage, to a woman that was 12 years my senior, and she'd been married twice before me. She had kids from both husbands, and she moved in with me, and she was so unhappy, and I was like, bring them here. And I adopted all those kids. So if you can imagine, I was 24, just turning 25 years old. I had a 17-year-old son, an 11-year-old daughter, a 5-year-old, and then shortly after, a blood child of my own coming on board. And so I was out to change the world. And I had to learn how to manage my life and who I was. And these kids, I fell totally in love with them. And the joy of my life today. And that marriage lasted 14 years. And when they grew up, I was there for the kids, honestly, more than anything else. We weren't the right match for each other. We're still good friends. And I married my wife now. We've been together 25 years, the greatest gift of my life. But my wife didn't think we could have kids. The doctor told her point blank we couldn't. So we ended up doing it with a surrogate. And it was COVID. And I'm normally going on the road 225 days in a year, 200 days in a year. With COVID, they shut down every arena in the world. I mean, they went from doing 15,000 people to them saying I could put 100 people in the arena. So we pivoted, and I started doing digital seminars. We did the biggest ones in the world, 1.3 million people in an event for 3 days, and really made it an experience that was amazing. So there was time. So we got our daughter. But to answer your question specifically, I think in my 20s and 30s, I was still trying to figure out completely who I was. And all I knew is I want these kids to be loved. I want them to know that they're not here to demand from life. Life is expecting something from you. And that if you're here to be a contributor, you'll always be happy. And I really accomplished that. I'm proud of all my kids. They're all contributors. They're all contribute time, energy, money, resources to help people who are not as well off as they are. They're all great parents. And they're all just good people. But with my daughter today, it's, I had her at 61. So certainly not what I planned for. It brought more joy to me than anything else because you know so much more. You have so much more wisdom to share. You have more time to just experience things versus when you're running, trying to make it all happen. Yeah. And I think someone like yourself at 38, and we talked off the air here that at some point you'll probably have children. I think in that 38, 39, 40, you have more wisdom because you're still, you know who you are now to a great extent. You'll continue to evolve. Yeah,
I'll continue.
Especially you, right? I'm continuing to evolve, right? Yeah. But I think there's just more to give at that stage. But I also would tell anybody that if someone would have told me, if you think of 0 to 21 as being a pattern of seasons, like when I say pattern recognition, the pattern that has changed humanity the most, the first recognized pattern that we changed and started to use was seasons. Until then, we were hunter-gatherers and starving to death unless we could find the right food. It's total stress. Way more stress than we have today, right? Yeah. But then what happened? We realized, wow, there are these seasons, and if I plant in the spring, I protect it during the summer, I get to reap in the fall, have enough for winter, I can do the whole thing again. Well, if you do the right thing at the wrong time, you get nothing. It doesn't matter how hard you work. So I'm a big believer in looking at what season you are in your life,
such a great
what
answer.
Season you are in history, right? What season I'm in with my family. And so I think a 0 to 21 is springtime. Everything grows in springtime. It's easy to grow things in springtime. If you start a business in springtime, you think you're a genius. You're not a genius, you're just in the right season, right? But then summer comes and things are tested. And God or the universe, whatever you want to call it, has made it so we have an easy time and then we have a tough time. To test this, to make us grow. An easy time rewards and a tough time. So summer, think of it as like 22 to 42 roughly. 0 to 21, you're taken care of. I had a childhood that was a little tough, but I was 13 or 14. I had to work to support the family, but I didn't have to make all the money for the food. Someone else was housing me. Someone else was taking care of me. At that stage of life, you're taking in information. 22 to 42, now you go test it, right? Now you go say, well, I was taught all this stuff, but what do I believe? And in the early stages of that season, you think you're invincible. You think you're going to be a multi-billionaire, president of the United States, and have 100 relationships simultaneously, and everyone will be happy, right? And by the time you're 32 or 3 or something like that, you start going, I'm not a billionaire, I'm not the president of the United States, and I can't even one person happy in a relationship. What the hell's going on here? And that's usually when people start to look out for people like you and I who are looking for some wisdom about how to live life in a way that's happy and fulfilling and growing and expanding because they know they're not invincible. That stage, if you're listening, if you're in that 22 to 42, it is the most painful stage across all studies, most unhappy stage. If you're happy right now, that is awesome. And anyone can be, but most aren't fully happy at that stage. It's the most trying stage. It's the testing time. And if you didn't grow during spring and take care of yourself summer, then you won't reap in the fall. You're going to weep. But if you grew in both those stages, now you go to the third stage. That's, basically 43 to 63. And both these numbers are round, right? Some people are early, some people are late. But in that stage of life, you've accumulated enough skill and knowledge. If you've grown, you know the people, I'm sure you're already experiencing it now. Like I was in Greece and I got stuck. I'm fortunate enough to have a private plane and I'm supposed to fly to Germany and I want to drop my family in Italy so I can have a good time. And they, we had it 2 weeks in advance. They told us what the times would be. And then they changed the times and said I couldn't get out until after my seminar started with 13,000 people from 54 countries, right? And I'm like, and they were immovable. And so like, okay, my only option is find some other way to get to Athens and fly somewhere else. And it's like, no, at this stage of my life, there aren't very many people on the planet. Who do I know that knows, the prime minister of Greece? So I asked ChatGPT, Tony Robbins, who does he know? It gave me a list. It's like Mark Benioff of Salesforce, one of my dearest friends, and human partners. Peter Diamandis, one of my partners in business.
Yeah.
He's from Greece and he knows them. And went through the whole list. There's like 9 of them. So I called 3 of them, and the poor prime minister got about 9 calls. And next thing I know, no problem. They moved the time and everything else. There's a stage of life that if you've done your job and contributed enough to society, that most of the players or most of the people in the industry, and you've got relationships that are 20 years long or maybe 30 years long. And the talent pool is not elastic. There's only so many people that keep growing. And so you usually know those people and have a role in that. So that stage is where most people have that stage that we can think of as autumn, as the fall, as the reward stage. That's when most people earn the most. That's when most people tend to grow the most. That's when you start to really become a leader in that stage. Now, obviously, it can happen earlier. And then 64 to 84 to 104 to 124, which is the oldest living humans, is the winter stage, which is there's a gradual decline in the body no matter what you do at some stage. And you have to make sure you keep your mental facilities up. But it's also the most magnificent stage because you can make not only a phone call to get your plane out, but you have 40-year relationships now. I've got 5 kids and 5 grandkids. I've got people that I love with my soul that I would do anything for, do anything for me. I don't know many things in life. I feel closer to God and the universe than I've ever felt in my life. I feel like my life is such a blessing. If my life ended tomorrow, I'd be the most blessed man on earth. I like to continue contributing, but that's not in my hands.
Yeah, we need you around, Tony. Yeah.
But that's not in my hands. Whenever I go, it'll be the right time. So it's just like, I want people to know, and all the studies, by the way, show if you stay healthy, this stage I'm talking about is the most fulfilling stage. And it's a stage where you get to become, an elder statesman, and you're not trying to prove to somebody who the hell you are. You don't play the social media game. You know who the hell you are. If people know you, like people know you're a good person, but if they don't, you don't really care, right? You just go deliver what you're here to deliver and do what you're going to do. So those stages of life, I think, are useful because we're all different, but there's a racetrack to life. And you're not there yet, but there's a stage in your life when your brain will go, there may be more days behind me than ahead of me. Mm. That's usually midlife, whatever age that is in people's heads. It's different for everybody. And there's a beauty, there's a massive increase of the beauty of life when you begin to realize it's a limited racetrack. Mm. It's you value every moment, every relationship, every experience you have even more. And I'm at a stage of life where I have so many friends that are 20 years my senior. I have a lot of friends in their 80s, and I have friends my age that have passed away just in recent years. And it just reminds you that it's a limited racetrack. But I think that's valuable. I remember I read Ray Kurzweil sent me one time. Ray Kurzweil's a brilliant futurist, one of the smartest in the world, right? And one day he sent me this little story. He goes, Tony, I think that you'd appreciate this. And it was a write-up about a story from a TV show that was done years ago. And in the TV show, which has a little twist, it's about a man who is a gambler, and he goes to heaven. And his idea of heaven is staying at the Wynn Hotel in the presidential suite, right? Or the Encore, the presidential suite. And he wakes up in heaven. He wakes up at the top of the Encore and he opens his closet. There's all these suits and outfits, and he opens his drawers, and there's cash and there's jewelry and watches and all these things. And he goes downstairs and every woman notices him, and he goes and he's blackjack, you win, 21, you win, And all of a sudden he's playing craps, you win. And he's like lit up like a Christmas tree. And he goes home that night with more than one person, and he thinks it's the greatest experience of his life. And he wakes up the next day and does the whole thing again. And the next day he does the whole thing again. The next day he does the whole thing again. After 3 weeks of this, he's sitting at the table. He's playing blackjack and goes, 21, you win. He goes, of course I win. I always win. He's getting angry. He goes, there's something wrong here. He goes, I want to speak to the head angel. There's something wrong here. And so the head angel comes over. He looks like Guy Lombardi in his tuxedo and says, can I help you, sir? And he says, yes. He goes, I win every single time. He goes, there's a mistake here. I don't belong in heaven. I'm not the kind of guy that should be in heaven. And the angel looks at him and said, who said you're in heaven?
Oh, wow.
If we always got everything we wanted, if time was unlimited, would you value life as much? Mm. So I'm here to make sure we make every moment matter with meaning. and with love.
It's beautiful. I love that story. Love that story. And I mean, you've dedicated so much to this and you keep doing it. Time to Rise Summit. Time to Rise is coming up at the end of this month.
Yes.
And it's another opportunity for people to get better at making decisions.
Yes.
To decide, to commit, to act, to resolve, to have that energy. Everything we've been talking about today.
Plus, there's something about the calendar that's so funny. It's totally arbitrary. Yeah. But a new year is like a new life. It's like a fresh start. And we all need a fresh start. But the problem is most people set a bunch of New Year's resolutions and, 98% they don't follow through on them. So this is about, hey, let's figure out what you really want. What's getting in the way? What's the plan? It's only 3 hours a day. So think of it like a great movie, only you're in it and you're actually changing your life 3 days in a row. So it's January 29th through the 31st. And you can attend from anywhere on earth. We had 1.3 million people last year attend from 193 countries, every country on earth that exists, at least that the UN recognizes. And it's an experience I promise you won't forget. Plus, there's a community of people, and there's zero charge. It's not like partial pay or there's zero charge. Once a year, I do this just to give back to people all over the earth. And it's really, really dynamic. And people create incredible changes and they share them with the community on Facebook. I look forward to it every year. So I hope people will join us. And then the other thing, I hope you'll join me for that because it's an immersion and it's the beginning of the year and you set yourself up to win and meet some great people. But then also I've actually now created with partnership with Paramount where I'm doing the Tony Robbins Network, which we've just launched and it'll be all over the world. They're going to actually translate it in every language. I'll use AI, so I'll be speaking with my own voice and it's amazing technology we have today. But it's literally 24/7 channel of nothing, but we've got dozens of programs we developed on how to improve your body, your emotions, your relationships, your finances, and there's no charge for it at all. So anybody can dip in and have an experience there as well.
Wow, that's fantastic. I mean, what I love about Time to Rise is that few days, those 2 to 3 days that people will spend with you, it will create a shift.
There's no question.
Because we all need those moments where we just immerse, we get absorbed, we get focused. Because some of us maybe will do 10 minutes of thinking about our life here and 30 minutes over there. And maybe you'll spend an hour if you're lucky. But to have 3 days of 3 hours each, it's colossal what could happen in your life.
And I really believe in immersion. The reason I do live events, and they're usually 12 hours a day to give you an idea, and people who won't sit for a 3-hour movie will go 12 hours and say, this is the greatest experience of my life, is immersion is the way to learn. Like if you're going to learn a language and you learn a little bit at a time, most people learned in high school and college, they don't speak the language years later. But if I dropped you in Rome for 90 days with no teacher and I pick you up, you're going to be speaking because you're seeing it, feeling, experiencing it. So 3 hours isn't quite that level of immersion, but it's enough to really create momentum, make some real choices and really change your life for the better. And it'd be my privilege to serve anyone who wants to join us. And again, there's no charge for it.
Last question, Tony, before we end, you mentioned there that, and you've talked about it in your seminars, I've seen you talk about it, your relationship with God, the universe.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you about that because I think we often refer to a relationship with God, a relationship with the universe. What does a relationship with God and the universe look like? How does one nurture that? What does that mean? It's
more of what it feels like to me than what it looks like. It feels like, I feel like I've been guided in my life because I've asked for guidance and I believe I've been created. I think we're all created for different purposes. And my own personal belief, which may be wrong, is that I'm here to make things better. I mean, I wear these silly baseball caps all the time just for fun, but if you read them on the side, it says, be a blessing and you'll be blessed is what it says underneath. And that's my whole philosophy of life, be a blessing. And I think, I know one of my sons, Josh, I remember when he became a Christian, I'm of the Christian faith personally, but I'm quite broad in my approach. I'm not restrictive in my thinking, and I don't believe everyone should be what I believe to believe. In other words, if you have a spiritual belief, I hope you follow it, because whatever it is, if you don't follow it, you're probably not going to be happy. And I'm not a proselyte of people to have to be or think a certain way. But I remember my son, he became Christian, and when people find God in whatever way they find it, they often think no one else has that. It's only their way, And he became very, very rules driven about this is how it is and that's how it is. And I was quite concerned. But rather than trying to push him to be a certain way, I told my wife, Sage, I said, honey, we were in Fiji, and I said, I've got a few days. I said, I'm going to go on a fast for the next 4 days, maybe 4 or 5 days, just drink juice. And I'm going to read the whole Bible from cover to cover. And I said, because I've never read it that way. I've never done total immersion like I talked about. And I read the whole Bible and literally about 18 hours a day. And I was struck at the end by an overall pattern. So I went to my son. He was being very devout and very right, wrong, good, bad. And anytime you make things extreme, I think it creates problems, right? And I didn't try to make him wrong in any way. I said, God's this and God means that, and this is what Christ did, and this is how it is. And I said, okay, Josh, I said, I have one question for you. I said, I just read the entire Bible from cover to cover, and his jaw dropped open. I said, I'm dead serious. And Sage of the Mage goes, he did it. I said, one thing that comes out of it, I read the Old Testament, and God seems like a selfish bastard who's mean and vindictive. And I read the New Testament, and God seems incredibly loving and supportive of all. So I said, if that's true, does God grow? And there's this long pause. He felt like he was being trapped. Like, you're trying to trap me. And I said, I'm not trying to trap you. I'm asking an honest question. I mean, everything in the universe either grows or dies. So does God grow? If the Bible is a real reflection of God, and there are many other books that are a reflection of being inspired by the divine, but let's say that's the book, does God grow? Because it sure looks like it in the book, And if that's true, the only reason I'm bringing that up is I know what you're fearing is that you can't have absolute certainty about how things are, which is what everybody wants, but you could have faith. And I said, he goes, well, God knows everything. God knows what you're going to do before you're going to do how it's going to be. And he gave me this rattle. And I said, okay, I believe all that. But the question is, does God grow? And he couldn't give me an answer either way because he felt like he was being trapped in it. But eventually he loosened up. And I can say today he's much more balanced, in that area. He's not trying to make everybody else believe what he believes. But I think the universe grows. I think God grows. And I think it's our job to grow. And I think that when I look at the spiritual side of life, the relationship I have is one that's more emotional than visual. I feel like when I get up to serve, God comes through me. When someone stands up and let's say it's a date with destiny. You've been a date with destiny. You never know who's going to stand up. They could say, I'm suicidal, or they could say, I'm considered killing myself and my 5 kids. I mean, I've had that come up. They could say I made $400 million and I'm depressed, and people want to slap them. You never know what somebody's going to say. But the minute they stand up inside me, it's already done. Not because I'm so smart, because I know they stood up in this moment, I believe, because this is all by design. And the right answers will come through me, and they do. I mean, I've never lost the suicide, knock on wood, in 48 years. I'm sure people have seen. Some people may have seen "I'm Not Your Guru" on Netflix. It's a piece, but you see
fantastic.
You see people 6 years later, like the woman that was there, that was suicidal, that was in that cult where they made you have sex with the adults. And she's got out. She's now a psychologist. She's rescued all these other kids. She doesn't have an ounce of depression or suicidal thoughts. Stanford did a study that shows that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that the spiritual side of life is critical. But what I said to my son is this. I said, I want everyone's relationship to be God if I had a choice, which I don't. But if I had a choice, it should be as unique as your signature. Why should everybody copying everybody else? You should have an individual relationship with God. So I said, I really appreciate if you read the Bible or you read any great spiritual book. I personally am Christian, but read any of them and let God speak to you. Don't just take it from another man or woman standing on a stage telling you what to believe. I always tell people in my events, I'm not here to tell you how to be. Who the hell would I be to do that? I'm just sharing with you insights and tools and strategies that can help you guide yourself to who you want to be. And hopefully to ask you, who do you want to be in this lifetime? Because in the end, what you get's not going to make you happy. Who are you going to become? That's going to make you happy or sad. So I think it's an individual decision, and I think it evolves for people over time. But I think it's one of the most important things, because for those who believe that there's nothing, nihilistic, but this moment or this body, I think that's a big mistake. It's like saying Webster's dictionary is the result of an explosion at a print factory. It all came together perfectly in balance. I just don't buy that, even logically. And I think you're missing out on life if you don't think there's something more than you, and also something more to serve than you. And that gives me personally a great sense of meaning.
Yeah. Tony, thank you for your work, your tools, your insights, your life, your service. Thank you for your time and energy today.
Thank you for all that you do. I appreciate it so much.
No, I'm so grateful for our friendship, honestly. It's been a real gift. And I want to push people to timetorisesummit.com. It's timetorisesummit.com. That's where you can subscribe. Remember, you can sign up for absolutely free to join the Time to Rise Summit. You can be a part